Item on the agenda is something we just actually added it yesterday, and there were some materials that were provided to the media, and the commissioners have them as well. But it has to do with an initiative from the County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania, who has joined a court action through an amicus brief or a friend of the court brief, just to put the County Commissioners Association or the court on notice that the County Commissioners Association and counties across the state are interested in an efficient and favorable outcome of the court's decision on, namely, whether or not there is, or primarily whether or not there's one primary or potentially two primaries. The legislative district, the congressional districts, I believe the U.S. Supreme Court has now settled that issue, but the legislative districts are still unsettled. And so there apparently exists the potential that there could be a primary for one and then a primary for another, which Sean and Suzanne are here from the voter office to add any, I guess, information as to how difficult those things just might be, along with other difficulties that are typically dealt with. What two primaries might mean for counties. There are deadlines and timelines in between that make it very difficult, if not impossible, to have them unless they're going to be months apart. They certainly can't be a week apart or 2 weeks apart or anything like that. So there's a lot more to what there's a lot more to the amicus brief and to the information that the County Commissioners Association has put out, but that's a little bit of the I guess synopsis of the issue. And this is just an effort to kind of get that word out that there are concerns over that, and there's an acronym that's been put out there, not surprisingly using the word VOTE. So with that, I'll leave first the commissioners, I think, with anything they might want to say in that regard. I was just trying to set the table a little bit.
Sure, I don't mind. I was part of a board meeting with CCAP when we discussed this issue, and Joe Kant said about we need an acronym so we can make it memorable, so people understand, to simplify what we're getting to. And so right away I thought of VOTE, and I made some notes about how this might play out. And then Christian Leinbach chimed in as well. And between the three of us, we were doing the chat while everybody else was talking online, and we worked out the acronym VOTE and what it stands for when it comes to elections. So it was a team effort. But the bottom line is that it's so important that the courts got this amicus brief, because it means that we are the voice, counties are the voice of elections. We are mandated to carry it out, and we carry it out, to the best of our ability. We follow the laws, and right now, with everything tied up in the courts, it's making it very difficult to follow those laws, because what's happening is the time frames that are prescribed in law are truncated. They're not what the law says. And these appeals can go on after the election. And so therefore, we need, first of all, one primary, not two. Two primaries tax us financially, and our staff, and our volunteers. We can't get locations, because if it's a school or a church and we have two primaries, are they going to open it up a second time? The costs will be astronomical. It's like holding two full elections. The list goes on. The bottom line is, the T stands for timely elections or timely deadlines. We need the final decision. The state Supreme Court has left it go, but I understand the federal Supreme Court still has something to rule on. And if that happens and they come up, there's an appeal, and that appeal, I think I saw it touched on in both the Lebanon Daily News and the Patriot. I don't know if you had it on, Laura. But basically, they're going back to a 1941 law that says we have to have 17 elections, so we have a congressman until they have the right maps. You know, it's just unreal, but that's what's going on. So there is so much up in the air still about this election, and it's not fair to counties. And of course, the last part is the election integrity, the E in vote, because we need for the public to have confidence in the election process. That can only happen if the courts rule and the legislature accepts what the courts rule, and we can conduct a fair and impartial election. We need everybody to come together in unity, and we need to work on this so that we can move forward and do our job the way we have always done and deliver a fair and safe election. Thank you.
I just want to add, I don't really have any additional information to add, Joel. I think you summed it up, but in a nutshell, we don't care about the verdict or the outcome of the courts. What we're interested in is timely decisions so that we can avoid a second election and all the extra costs. And Joe Allen outlined it. It's a shame. We need to move.
Michael, may I ask a question?
Yes.
This is just a request for a letter of support to join other counties, is my understanding. And I'm fine with that. As long as Sean and Susan, unless they have any objections, you know, for us getting involved in this effort.
Were you able to hear that?
Yeah.
No.
He was
Very
saying
poor.
that there is a request for a letter of support that's from CCAP. And we wanted to ask if you had any concerns or questions or objections to that. Have you seen the letter?
I'd like to see the letter. I want to make sure I know what I'm looking at.
Make sure they see that, Bob. Yeah, it's a pretty innocuous letter. It's just, again, asking for a timely decision.
Okay. Okay. I think I did, but just in case. Don't want to mix up my documents.
Okay. Any more or any?
So is this project vote just to endorse the letter of support for getting a timely election, or?
It's reinforcing the amicus brief that was filed and the contents of the amicus brief so that people can, I mean, it's like 14 pages or something. This cuts it down to 4 lines on what we are asking for. So it makes it hopefully understandable in layman's terms, because attorneys wrote the amicus brief, but this is what we are asking for. And in past court decisions, the courts have read and quoted in their decisions the items that the counties point out in their amicus briefs. So there's a lot of respect for CCAP at that level. And so we're hoping that everyone listens and we come out of this fast and with good deadlines. And we can, these poor people are the stress that they must be under in that office trying to pull this together. It's just not fair to our election staff, our poll workers, and, you know, if we'd have a second election, would we even be able to recruit enough poll workers? I mean, there's just so many issues out there. And I think the amicus brief does a nice job in summarizing those. But we have our hands full because this is tied up in the courts.
So this is really more, as Jamie said, the U.S. Supreme Court sort of put the federal election to rest.
Correct.
So this is really just the ongoing lawsuit related to the state legislative districts?
Yep.
Appeal from the final plan of the 2021 Legislative Reapportionment Commission.
So then it doesn't sound like for the congressional election, we would have this at-large election and everybody would, you know, it sounds like that's been settled.
I don't know. There is so much out there. Like I said, I read one, it was 2 days ago in the Patriot, and they said the state courts washed their hands over it and turned it over to the federal court. And then there was an article last night that didn't quite go into that same angle in the Daily News. And then I looked up the case online, and then I read about it. So I don't know where it stands. I'm not an attorney. It's very confusing. It's like following a bouncing ball, but we can't see where it's bouncing to.
And we're getting separate feedback on different details coming down.
Bob said
Okay,
something.
hold on a second. Go ahead, Bob.
But the bottom line is we're being three of us or two of us can agree on that, I'm one yes for that.
Actually, Bob, question back to the letter, they're asking for the letter, so should we be taking action today?
I think it's,
Endorse that letter?
yeah, I have it here. Oh, here, it's, I think it's a news release is what it is, but we can put it into a letter.
Yeah, I think that was the ask, actually, was if you
Yeah.
wanted to use their template newsletter, news release.
It was a news release, and so since we have a press here, we just are doing the press conference instead.
Okay, very good.
Right.
So, John, you want to pass that down to Sean so he can look over that?
Pardon?
Can you share that
Yeah,
with him
I'll
so
take
he
a
can
quick
look
I
over
think he had it
that?
in what I sent over. It's a template.
Is
It's a
it one of the
template
things
in
I-
press
Right,
release.
but just,
Okay.
Yeah.
Want to make sure if you don't mind, I'll grab it before we walk out.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure it's the same thing that I'm looking at. I'm sure it's fine.
I think it's the same thing. It says, news release on it. It doesn't say proclamation or letter or anything like that.
but, I'm sorry, Sean, go ahead, you have comments or questions?
There is one. We keep talking about May 17th because that's the magic date. But there's a more important date from my perspective. We have 50 days before the election, we have to get military ballots out. That's in a couple weeks. It takes weeks and weeks to set up a ballot, to proofread it, to take the necessary precautions to make sure everything's absolutely correct. So even right now, we are pushing the envelope for, not the May 17th date, but to get the military ballots out and absentee ballots out. So this is very urgent.
Fortunately, we're at the mercy of the courts and their time.
We're waiting on the courts, yep.
Good.
Anything else for that?
I'll take a quick look at this and I'll email you.
Thank you, and good luck.
Keep plowing away at everything else.
Doing the best you can, that's all you can do. Okay,
Screen here.
ready for,